Hi, Mako.
Hey, Julia, good to see you.
Good to see you
And
too.
yeah, and this is Good Friday today for Christians and beautiful day here in Princeton. How are you?
Yeah. How is the light shifting through things?
Oh, shifting a lot. Thank you for asking. I love watching the light shift. The tree swallows are back very early this year, which is very delightful. I love their uh, bubbly, watery sound that they make, and so that made me happy. But then I thought, boy, they're back early this year. Usually it's like the end of April. So maybe it was just two birds passing through or something. But no, it's been wonderful here. How's it in California?
I can see the light on the wall behind you in the shadow.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful.
it is. And I love just watching because of the refractive nature of the layers. You're highly sensitized to how the light works on the surface, and especially spring winter shift, you immediately notice the color change. Just
Yes.
and that's if you have a studio, if you're fortunate to have a studio like us, we do notice these things because we're here every day, and when you come into the studio, there's a different feel to when the light shifts. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned the swallows are there early. The roses are here early, about five
Oh,
weeks ahead.
5 weeks.
Yeah. According to the curator at the rose curator at the Huntington.
Huntington. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
really early season. We had unseasonably warm weather 2 weeks ago. It was in the
Right.
90s,
Right. Yeah.
and it just things bloomed.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
so vibrant, so many things are thriving,
Yeah.
but very early.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's all over. We are headed to Asia next
Mhm.
week, and we're told that Japan, Tokyo is kind of summer weather. You know, cherry blossoms came in early, and I was expecting like 80s, but you expect that in Taiwan and Hong Kong. But so we'll see. We'll report
That
back.
the cherry blossoms would already be past when you
Oh,
go in
totally.
early April.
Totally. Yeah, it used to
Wow.
be April would be tail end. Now I'm sure it'll be green. It's like May. So
Wow.
we would have missed that. But we have beautiful cherries here in Princeton, just opening up, and they're early as well. They're maybe a week or two early. So we got to enjoy them. And
Yeah. And when you head to Tokyo, you're also going to source specific materials you mentioned the
yeah.
last time we spoke.
Totally. Every time, and now with difficulties of sending materials, I'm totally with going with books. Of course, the our book coming out next week, and then art is, we'll pack a suitcase with books, and and then we'll come back with materials. So.
Good exchange.
Good exchange, I think. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And looking forward to it. And this time I'm having a little show at the Silk Makers Gallery. He has a little gallery with a shop, and so it's a very short week-long show. But yeah, he was mounting my tulip pieces, and thought that that would be fun to exhibit during spring. So we'll do a little exhibit, and it'll be really fun because I haven't had these Japanese shows tend to be like a week, and but people will come out and to see you. So it will be like a reunion of people, people who can come out. So. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't had shows since pre-COVID, so this obviously has changed a lot in terms of art world. And speaking of which, I saw in my feed, my email feed, all of a sudden I'm looking at it and there you are at this, I think it's a store called Talis. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, they are one of the primary bookbinding sources
Okay,
in the
right.
United States for
Wow.
high quality materials. Them and Hollanders are in Michigan, are the
Okay.
primary sources for good quality book cloth in the United States.
Right. And there
Um,
you are. Now tell me about your Instagram because you have far more photos than I do. I mean like far, far more. And you started this how long ago?
my Instagram,
Yeah, your
I
Instagram.
started as like a private kind of thing, just sharing with my friends. And then in 2020, August of 2020, I posted a reel doing a painting for a friend.
Okay.
Um, and people really responded to it and it resonated with them in a different way. And I
Yeah.
was in my final year of seminary studies
Yes.
and still very much in the beginning of quarantine isolation.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a bridging mechanism, a way of sharing something hopeful in the
Yeah.
midst
Yeah.
of isolation.
Yeah. And
And it resonated with people.
yeah.
And I gradually came to share daily offerings of what I was doing in my studio,
Hmm.
um, without pairing it with a trend in any way,
Yes.
just an honest, this is my work.
Hmm.
Come watch the paint dry with me in the
Hmm.
same manner that you invited me as your intern to sit and watch the paint dry.
Yeah.
There's something primal,
Yes.
primary, and
Yeah.
captivating about that
And heating.
and needed, and it provides
Yeah.
a respite
Yeah.
um, in our supercharged 24/7 cycle.
Yeah.
If we're going to be found in that place of always
Hmm.
consuming, then why not put a rest space
Hmm.
in there as
Wow.
well?
So you basically did the opposite of what Instagram,
Yeah,
is supposed to use. Like you're supposed to use the algorithm to, this attention economy, right? That the more hype, the better. And there's certain patterns to how people follow. But you're doing the opposite, and you gotten a lot of people follow you. What was that process like? When did you discover that this was like the thing that, for instance, this company will pick it up and say, here's an artist. They featured you without even you knowing.
yeah. I had tagged them because I wanted them to see my father's work. When
Oh,
I put
yes.
up my first post about that specific book, I did tag them because I was like, he uses their product and he uses it so well.
Right.
He crafts these gorgeous books.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a cool thing. And you never know. And it's also a way of helping others to find different material sources.
Yeah.
I think you would enjoy going to Talus.
Yeah.
It's in
Totally.
Brooklyn and seeing the variety of things that they offer there.
Totally.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
they are craftspeople, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Totally.
something beautiful in the same way that you're going to your silk maker
Mm-hmm.
in Tokyo. It's
Mm-hmm.
these ecosystems, these
Mm-hmm.
ecologies of care
Yeah.
and craft,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when you forwarded me the article, I had no idea that I was being featured in their newsletter. I thought it would stay on Instagram because they posted my reel to their story,
Right.
lovely common practice.
Right.
But then they put that feature, and that was a lovely thing to do.
Mm.
And that's another thing. There used to be a practice on Instagram among most creators called Follow Fridays, where on
Oh.
Fridays you would share to your story people that you enjoyed following
Mm,
or things that excited you
mm-hmm,
throughout the week.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and I don't do that formally, but I do that informally, right?
You're doing
I
it every day.
frequently, I'm like, I really like this, and this is why I like it. And I
Yeah,
think it's important to share why, what interests us about something, because it's a way of advancing a conversation.
yeah, yeah. So,
And
sorry. It sounds like you were not very intentional in growing your audience at all.
no, because if I do that,
Yeah,
then I will be caught up in a metric
right.
and I will be it for me it would destroy me.
Hmm.
Not destroy me. That's extreme, but it would hurt so much.
I think destroy is a good word. I think a lot of people don't realize the toxicity that you get sucked into when you're dealing with an algorithm, right? That's really focused on very, let's say, negative part of our emotions and our reactions, and it encourages these knee-jerk reactions to respond by creating false binaries of we against them, or this is somebody that I want to become, or some very yeah, we're talking on Good Friday. It exposes the darkest part of us, right? And it sounds like your practice of making it has always been toward finding healing, finding community, creating community around it. So you stay true to that sense of your calling, and it just happens that the algorithm is rewarding you that way.
I'm inviting people in for a studio visit. I'm
Mhm.
inviting people in for a prayer service
Yeah,
in the manner of the opera divina. To paint is to pray, to pay
yeah.
attention is to pray.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I think about that, it's the ecclesia, it's the community, it's this other work that happens, and people respond to it in that
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
if they let
Hmm.
themselves, right?
Yeah. And you have invited me into some of the conversations that you've been having with people who cannot go out in public, at least during the shutdown days. And I was really impacted by that, even though it was on Zoom. These, like most of them are strangers,
Mhm.
that I had never met before. But I caught a glimpse of what, this Zoom technology and Instagram and all of that, right, can have so much harmful effect. If you read Jonathan Haidt's book on, anxious generation, that's all you hear about, right? And this has potential negative effect on children and us, and all that is true. But we also need to discover a cultural care path, let's say, of generating something that is life-giving
Mhm.
through these mediums and through these technology that which is very powerful too. So a little effort can go a long way, and it just sounds like you're finding that. So.
Yeah. And finding different ways to edit. I have I have to give credit where credit's due. The Instagram Edits app
Hmm.
is excellent.
Yeah,
They're constantly adding more features and they're making it so
yeah,
much more entry level accessible
right.
to edit better and better quality.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm so thankful that that technology exists, right?
right. And the more
Um,
you use it, the more they will, I think, create these ways that because even people who work at Instagram, right, they have certain pressures, right? The data mining that they have to do. And yet, when they see an example like what you're giving them, which is life-giving, which is, more about slowing down, the algorithm doesn't lie. And if there's a human need for that,
Mhm,
that can also be amplified.
mhm. Yeah. And there's this great irony in my work in that many are filmed as time lapses. So
Hmm.
they're sped up and yet they cause a pause. They
Interesting.
cause a slowdown. And so
Interesting.
there's this juxtaposition in that, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
because you have to accelerate to the speed that people are moving
Hmm.
so they can just kind of move with it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting point you raise because I think we tend to think of, something that draws attention as almost like direct translation of our
Mhm,
experience.
mhm,
And we know as artists that's not true, right?
mhm,
Maybe when we are younger and we are ambitious and idealistic, we think, well, if I draw this way, then that will communicate what this object or the vitality of this still life or
mhm,
this portrait will do. And then you soon discover that actually the limitation of what you hit against
mhm,
in trying to do that. It's almost like you need to understand that communication happens in paradoxes, like the reversal of what you think should happen. It's often, if not a trick, it's something that is vital in how we receive information.
mhm,
Uh, so we have to constantly innovate and create ways, but it's often when we fail to do things, right? When we think we can do this and we don't, and it's obvious, then rather than being frustrated, we can step back and say, "Oh, that's interesting. Like that,
mhm,
there's an entry point here, right?" And it,
mhm.
it, it it sounds like that what you just said about these time lapses, which speeds up the time, and yet it slows people down.
Yeah, I saw like a physics experiment of a man in a chair
Hmm.
and the it was on a flatbed truck and
Mm,
he was moving on the flatbed truck at 80 miles an hour,
mm.
launched at 80 miles an hour and dropped calmly to the ground because it was
Right.
all going physics,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that that illustrates the speed up to slow down.
That's cool. That is such a cool thing. Yeah.
But
And go ahead.
I also think about the work that you filmed at the Fulton Center of Joyce's,
Hmm.
right? Of the whales,
Yeah.
bringing in this other reality
Yeah.
to constructed space
Yeah.
and saying, this exists in this ecosystem right here in the Long Island Sound, in
Yeah.
the Atlantic Ocean,
Yeah.
in proximity. And
Yeah.
here it is. Here are these whales. We're part of this.
Yes, it's such a beautiful installation. That's Joyce E. Lee's installation for MTA and Fulton Center that hopefully is up till mid-April, maybe if not more. We so this is talk about accidental things that's happening. So I was supposed to get together with my second son, Clayton, who's a comedian in Brooklyn, creating community there, and we were just gonna have ramen in New York City, right? He because he does comedy, he knows all these good ramen places now near comedy clubs. And so he said, "Oh, Dad, I found this place. I think you would like it." So we were gonna meet up, and and concurrently, we're getting together with Joyce for something else entirely. And Joyce, happens to have this MTA installation, which I hadn't seen at the Fulton Center, which I hadn't been to since 9/11. I knew the Calatrava building is amazing. I've seen it from outside, but I actually haven't been inside. I'm like, I had to go inside to find her piece, right? So I'm entering into the cavernous, beautiful structure there, and I am standing there kind of almost frozen because I realize, oh my goodness, I have not done this since 9/11. And for those of you listening who do not know Ground Zero reality, this is the building that was built literally through the cavernous holes that was built because of the two towers, and because they're no longer there, they created this structure to match the Ground Zero design by Daniel Libeskind, and all that is something that even at I Am Culture Care we talked about. We had Daniel Libeskind come and talk about the design of Ground Zero, and yet I haven't experienced it at all, right? So I'm kind of stunned by this. And Joyce kindly, she teaches at Pratt Institute, and she just ended her class, and I was texting her because I couldn't find where the best ideal location to look at this video. So she was texting back, and she said, "Oh, I'm gonna try to make it, come, but I'm not sure." So it's on the hour, every hour and it's only for 2 minutes. So you have to you have to be there to witness this. And I wasn't sure if Clayton can make it either. So I finally got to the spot where she said, you can see like the totality of all the whales and corals and this marine biologist that she worked with. And by the way, I did not know about the history of whaling and what, dolphins and whales are back into New York Harbor and all of that. It was just amazing to me that she decided to choose that because Calatrava building is like literally going into to inside the whale. The bone structure is designed that way. And I knew that, but nothing really, it's nothing like you're standing there in the midst of it, seeing Joyce's pieces, all of this open up, and of course my 9/11 experience and all that, right? And then my son, so Clayton comes running in and says, "Hey, Dad, I made it." And so that's when I took the video. And then, of course, as I'm taking the video and the thing is running, beautiful installation, Joyce comes in, and it was a moment where really talk about healing, right? That place where your son and one of your mentees and now a friend is joining you in that moment. It felt sacred to me, and that I get to experience that with them. Afterwards, we walked into that, which is a beautiful mall by Path Station, and all the way to the ferry. You can now walk across beneath the Ground Zero, basically. And so we took that path, we walked and walked back. And it was one of those moments where well, certainly I will never forget, but it made me realize, like, even this conversation, right, that we're having, what culture care is about. It's really about family, it's really about community, connecting those dots, perhaps that you have I didn't intend to ignore that at all. It would have been, I would have been fine to walk through that. At any point, it's like a museum, going into a museum. I love to look at architecture, but something probably prevented me from doing that, right? And it takes your family, it takes your son and a friend who dedicated her work to this space and the history of New York City to make that possible.
Mhm. And that's beautiful. And
Yeah.
that space, it is transformed.
Yes.
It has become
Yes.
this other it's still reflective
Yes.
as you walk in, and
Yeah.
the way it's vaulted and soars,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's giving you a glimpse of the future.
Yeah. And what's amazing is that you walk in and you walk out, and it is literally a born again experience, right? Or Jonah experience, right?
Yes.
You're going
Yes.
inside this whale, a big fish, and then you come out a little bit different, perhaps. People commute, so they may not, have that experience. But for me, it was a really profound experience.
Yeah. And what a beautiful ecology of care.
Right. And it has to overlap with what is ecological and what has always been there, right? That's the thing about culture care is we're not talking about doing anything new. We're saying that, the culture wars rhetoric is new. James Davison Hunter, the sociologist, coined that term in 1980s, right? That's the polarity that we're experiencing, and really the decimation of human to human communication is a recent thing. Even though conspiracy theories and this rhetoric has fighting for ideologies has always been, obviously. So, but this level of dehumanization is polarization, and dehumanization is new. And yet, culture care is an ancient reality. As long as we were, cave painting, some kind of care or connection to the transcendent and the reality, the fears and anxieties of our days are being captured in these paintings, in these writings, in these songs. And so it's an ancient practice, but it's as if we have forgotten the power of that and the healing power of that.
Yeah. And that's where beauty and justice comes in too.
Yes, yes. Hajin and I have been lecturing together for some time, and when this book came out, Beauty and Justice book, we also realized how powerful it is, this cultural metaphor, cultural ecosystem, when justice is part of that. Justice conversation needs something like this because otherwise it also gets hijacked by polarities, we versus them, and Hejin talks about lawyers winning the case or losing the case. And she has found that these terms are not very helpful
Mm,
because a lot of times if you win the case, even though if you win it, the client may not be happy, because of what happened in the process. And basically, you go in with deficit anyways, even if you're trying to win something. So the care that an attorney can give to the client makes a huge difference in terms of fruitfulness of whatever happens. And oftentimes a good judge will recognize that, right? And
mm,
and so the process itself, it is so much about winning and losing now. It doesn't deal with the future-oriented thinking of what this might be this fracture might be an opportunity for new ways of thinking about what is going on and new laws, new ways that we can, work together, right, to create a future that is more fair. The word fair is both good and beautiful, right? So it is something that we have been lecturing on, and I think part of what we experience today as artists is that connection, beauty and justice connection, is heightened even more because of this polarized reality and fragmented reality. But there's also opportunities for an artist to, use technology or certainly, but just by being true to ourselves, we are actually providing healing.
Yeah. And all of our conversation today is about taking an existing form and constructing something generative within it.
Yes, that's right. And you first have to love what you're doing, right? You have to stay with it. You have to love it. You have to embed your imagination into form.
Mhm.
So that's what you're doing when you're pouring ink in onto these beautiful surfaces. The paper itself, it's love of materials, but it's also your love for your father.
Mhm.
Your father's love for you. That's all coming out, even though it may not be spelled out that way.
Mhm.
And so you never know how that will affect people.
Mhm.
And so every time we paint, we are integrating, intuiting something that we don't really understand,
Yeah.
and it's really about love. It's really about creating has to be connected with love,
Mhm.
because love is the most powerful generative force in the universe, and we get to every day in the studio practice that.
Mhm. Yeah. A fitting message for Good Friday.
Yes. Good fitting message for spring, Good Friday, Easter, and as we report back from our trip to Asia, I'm sure there'll be more discoveries. But Julia, thank you for doing what you're doing so faithfully and so
Thank you.
consistently. Yeah.
Traveling mercies.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.